A single post, a dark secret, a real-life tragedy. What happens when online confessions bleed into the real world? We've all seen creepy stories online, but some threads don't just end when you close the browser. The year is 2003. The internet is a different landscape, a digital frontier of dial-up tones and flickering CRT monitors. Buried deep within it, a forum known only as the Ethereum Conduit. It was a place for fringe science, esoteric thought, and conversations that took place in the dead of night. It was not for the faint of heart, and one user, Sub-level Spectre, was its most enigmatic contributor. On October 17th, he made his final post. It wasn't a story. It read like a lab report. Cold, clinical. Title: Phase 1, Chamber Calibration Complete. Most users dismissed it as elaborate fiction, role-playing, but the details felt disturbingly specific. The post described a room, a basement, shielded with lead and copper mesh. He spoke of tuning forks, oscilloscopes, and a central vessel, a term he never defined. He claimed to be aligning resonant frequencies to thin the veil. The language was precise. He mentioned specific hertz levels, the ambient temperature of the concrete, the exact alloy of the metal chair placed in the center of the room. It was a blueprint for something unknown. Replies trickled in. Most were skeptical. Cool story, bro. Pics or it didn't happen. One user, Oracle7, pressed him. What are you trying to achieve, Spectre? What is the vessel? This is the turning point. The moment a story either fades away or becomes something more. Sub-level Spectre didn't reply with words. He posted a single image file, Chamber SO1 JPG. The download would have been agonizingly slow on a dial-up modem. A series of screeching, digital handshakes, transmitting a single, terrible photograph. The image resolved. It was exactly as described. A bare, concrete room, seen from a low angle. In the center, a stark metal chair bolted to the floor. The walls were bare, except for a series of bizarre, geometric symbols etched directly into the concrete. A single dark stain marred the floor near the base of the chair. The flash reflected off something on the wall, a dense, chaotic web of copper wiring, all leading to the symbols. The forum went silent. The picture was undeniable. This wasn't a story anymore. It was a location. 2 days later, the final post. It was short, panicked. The clinical tone was gone, replaced with raw fear. The resonance is unstable. Negative feedback loop. It's not opening a door, it's creating an echo. The vessel is gone. Just gone. But something is still in the chamber. It knows my name. After that, the account Sub-level Spectre was never active again. The Ethereum Conduit itself was deleted from its server a year later. For years, that was the end of the story. A ghost story from the early days of the web, a piece of internet lore. Until a digital archivist recovered a cached version of the forum, including the photo's corrupted EXIF data. Most data is lost to time, but sometimes a fragment survives. A digital breadcrumb leading off the path. The data wasn't complete. It didn't point to a house. It pointed to a 50-square-mile patch of forgotten farmland in the rural Midwest. A search began, cross-referencing property records, census data, and old maps. A name was found. Arthur Fincher, an electrical engineer who inherited a remote family property in 1999. He took a leave of absence from his job in 2002. He never returned. The property was listed as derelict, uninhabited for nearly 2 decades. A single forgotten house at the end of a long dirt road. This is the point of no return, when a digital investigation becomes a physical one, and the rules change. Our investigator arrived at dusk. The air was heavy, thick with the smell of damp earth and decay. The only sound was the wind, whistling through the skeletal branches of dead trees. It sounded like a lament. The house groaned under the weight of its own neglect, paint peeled like sunburnt skin. Windows were dark, empty eyes staring out into the twilight. A no trespassing sign, rusted and full of bullet holes, hung from a single nail on the porch. The front door was ajar. It swung gently in the breeze, creaking on its hinges. A dark invitation into the rot within. The air that flowed out was stale, cold, and carried another scent beneath the mildew. Ozone. The smell of charged air after a storm. Every abandoned place feels haunted, but this was different. This place didn't feel empty. It felt expectant. Inside, the decay was absolute. Furniture lay shrouded in thick, gray sheets of dust. Wallpaper, patterned with faded flowers, hung in long strips, revealing the dark, stained lathe underneath. The investigator's footsteps echoed in the oppressive silence. In the kitchen, a calendar was still pinned to the wall. October 2003. The 17th was circled in red pen, the day of the first post. The days after were marked with frantic, illegible scribbles, ending abruptly on the 19th. At the back of the house, a door. It didn't match the rest of the building. It was solid oak, reinforced with a thick steel deadbolt. And it led to the basement. Scratches marred the wood, deep gouges clustered around the lock. They were on the outside. You don't lock a basement door like that to keep people out. You lock it to keep something in. The lock was rusted shut. The investigator used a crowbar. The sound was obscene in the silence. A screech of tortured metal, a loud crack as the wood of the door jamb splintered and gave way. The door swung inward into absolute blackness. The smell of ozone was overpowering now. It stung the nostrils. A wave of intense, unnatural cold washed up the stairs. The camera's microphone began to pick up a low-frequency hum, a sound that felt like it was vibrating deep inside your skull. Slowly, the investigator descended. Each step on the wooden stairs groaned in protest. The air grew colder. The hum grew louder. The flashlight beam cut through the oppressive dark, landing on a concrete floor. He found it. He actually found it. The image from the screen was now a physical space. The beam swept across the room. It was all there. The bare concrete walls, the chaotic web of copper wires, now green with verdigris. And in the center of the room, bolted to the floor, was the metal chair. It was just as the photo had shown. The dark stain was still on the floor. The geometric symbols were etched deep into the walls, the copper wires running between them like a strange, chaotic circuit board. It was real. The investigator reached out a hand, touching one of the symbols. The moment his fingers made contact, the camera feed erupted in a violent burst of static. The hum intensified into a painful shriek, and a voice whispered through the white noise, a distorted, guttural sound. What was this experiment? Not a summoning, not a haunting, something else entirely. On a dusty workbench in the corner, under a tarp, was a leather-bound journal. The investigator wiped away a thick layer of grime. The name A. Fincher was embossed on the cover. Sub-level Spectre's journal. The pages were filled with equations, diagrams of the chamber, and frantic, handwritten notes. It was a chronicle of obsession. Fincher believed he could create a localized field where physical laws became pliable. He wasn't trying to open a door to another dimension. He was trying to overwrite this one. The vessel wasn't a spirit. It was a person, a volunteer, according to the early entries. Someone who wanted to be the first to experience true reality. It was failed science, the most terrifying kind. He wasn't trying to call a monster. He was trying to build one. The final entry was barely legible, the pen having torn through the paper in places. Resonance failed. Catastrophic feedback. It didn't bring something through. It rewrote what was in the chair. The subject's physical form was deconstructed. The mass is gone, but the echo remains, an imprint in space-time. It's learning. It's mimicking the sounds from outside the chamber. I hear it whispering in the static. I think it's trying to rebuild itself. That's when the investigator hears it. Not through the camera mic, but in the room itself. A soft, rhythmic tapping. It's coming from inside the concrete wall behind the chair. The echo, the imprint. Fincher hadn't escaped the consequences. He had only locked the door, trapping the result of his failure inside. The flashlight begins to flicker. The hum in the room intensifies. And then, the whisper from the static returns. It's clearer this time. A distorted, synthesized voice, pieced together from random noise. It's forming a word, a name. It is whispering the name of the investigator holding the camera. The camera clatters to the floor, its view now sideways. It sees the investigator's feet scrambling backwards, kicking up dust. It sees the metal chair,